Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant James Chapness. We warmly welcome the family of Private George Knight Rapp and Private Henry Thomas Rapp, who are watching the live stream of this evening's ceremony. Their stories will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the stories behind two of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private George Knight Rapp and Private Henry Thomas Rapp. George Rapp was born in 1890. His brother Henry was born 4 years later. Their father had moved to Casino District some years earlier, working as a stockman at Warrawolgan Station. He later selected land south of Casino, which eventually became the settlement of Rappville, named for Henry Rapp. The brothers grew up in Rappville in a family of 12 children and attended the local public school. Henry went on to work in the district as a farmer, while George worked as a stockman. In 1913, George married Ella Whitten, and their child was born later that year. Henry enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in September 1915. He left Australia for active service overseas, with reinforcements to the 9th Battalion in December of the same year. After arriving in Egypt, he began training until he fell ill and had to spend an extended period of time at a hospital in Abasia. When he left hospital, he was transferred to the 47th Battalion and sent to France to fight on the Western Front. The 47th Battalion entered the trenches of the Western Front for the first time in July 1916. Although not playing a primary attacking role, the battalion was involved in the fighting at Pozières, either through providing working parties or by defending newly captured ground. In August 1916, Henry's brother George enlisted. George was posted to the 41st Battalion and, after a period of training in Australia, left for active service overseas aboard the troop ship Kyara. He arrived in England in January 1917 and continued training at Salisbury Plain for some time. Henry remained with his battalion throughout the bitterly cold winter of 1916 to 1917, as the battalion rotated in and out of the front line. He fell sick with the mumps and was evacuated to England to recover, returning to the front in March 1917. Weeks after his return, Henry took part in the First Battle of Bullecourt. This was the first occasion that the Australians would work with their new invention, tanks, and it was a disaster. Although parts of the line advanced under heavy fire, determined German counterattacks pushed the Australians back, and the operation failed, with heavy casualties. One of those who failed to return was Private Henry Rapp. It took some months to determine his fate. It was believed that he had been taken prisoner, and at one point the Germans confirmed that he was a prisoner and had been taken to Limburg in Germany. This was a mistake, however. Rapp had been taken prisoner, but he was wounded at the time, and despite being given medical treatment at a hospital in Valenciennes, he died of his wounds 4 days later. Not knowing of his brother's fate, Private George Rapp was sent to join his battalion on the Western Front in late June 1917. He arrived a few weeks after the 41st Battalion had fought at Messines, while they were trying to establish a new front near the line near Wardenton. In full view of the Germans, the Australian infantry worked day and night under heavy shell fire, suffering heavy casualties. On the 4th of October 1917, the 41st Battalion participated in the Battle of Broad Cinder Ridge. During the attack, George was wounded in his shoulder. He was taken to hospital to recover, later developing a problem with his feet that needed further treatment. He was not fit to rejoin his battalion until late April 1918. In early August, the 41st Battalion took part in the Battle of Amiens and remained in or near the front line for the long advance that followed. In the early hours of the 1st of September, the 41st Battalion assembled, ready for an assault on German positions near Bonpan-Payon Road. The Germans had not been kept down by the artillery barrage, and men advanced into a hail of machine gun bullets. Bitter hand-to-hand fighting followed as the Australians reached their objective. Although the operation had some success in capturing ground, including 250 prisoners and 5 German field guns, the 41st Battalion, running at under half strength, suffered 120 casualties. One of those killed was Private George Rapp. The exact manner of his death is unknown. Unlike many who had been left on the battlefield that day because the enemy machine gunners were shooting stretcher bearers, George Rapp's body was recovered, and today he is buried at M. Monaco Cemetery. George Knight Rapp was 28 years old. His epitaph reads, "His duty, nobly done." His brother Henry Rapp is buried in the Valenciennes Communal Cemetery in northern France, under the words, "His duty, nobly done, rest in peace." He was 23 years old. Their names are listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. Their photographs are displayed today beside the pool of reflection. These are but two of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private George Knight Rapp and Private Henry Thomas Rapp, who gave their lives for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrubber Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.